We think a lot as behavioral scientists, the best place to start is what your customer is actually doing
Mhm.
versus you predict their future behavior. Our general perspective is that folks working in product, many times there are
Mm.
completely unsolved problems, but many times
Mm.
uh, there's literature or understanding about human behavior that has already been worked on. So
Mhm.
if about something like connection, if you're an app working on how do you help people connect, there are hundreds of papers thinking about the theories of connection. And so we
Yeah.
shouldn't be starting from scratch. We shouldn't be interviewing 5 people and trying to, recreate the wheel. We should be
Mm.
first reading some papers. In Irrational Labs, we have something called the 3 Bs, which is basically you pick that
Okay.
behavior you want to change, you decrease the barriers to that behavior, logistical and psychological, and we can talk more about what that means, and you
Mhm.
increase the benefits to that behavior. So you make it more motivating for me to do in the immediate sense, not in the future sense. And so by doing that, you kind of have an understanding, again, the behavior you want to change and where in the flows you can do that. By the way, if you're 0 to 1, that's fine. You still want to map the real things that people do outside of the product in the real world that get to the behavior.
Yeah.
But you have understanding about what you can actually do to move the needle. Netflix wanted people to increase retention, but the way they did this was by measuring the amount of videos that people rated. So
Mm.
why that? Because if you rate a video, you're more likely to like the video. So their personalization algorithm went from basically looking at what other people like to looking at what you like. So turns
Yeah.
out the best predictor of what I want to watch is what I watched before and liked. And so Netflix had a journey where they were trying to get me to rate videos so that they could
Mhm.
recommend future videos to me. Now, the product team basically then had a very different challenge than retention. The product team had a challenge of how do you get people to rate videos? And it went from a 5-star, how do you like this video to thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And so why would that be? It's because the product team was focused on the behavior of rating videos. They said, how do you make this easier? People aren't doing it enough. It's not that they don't want to do it. It's that,
Mhm.
it's too difficult. Can we make it easier? It turns out when you make something easier, thumbs up, thumbs down, more people will engage. And so when
Yeah.
we think that, it's a nice example of saying going from a business metric, retention, to a user behavior metric. And you want to correlate those. These are proxies for outcomes. You want to correlate those to the outcomes. But by focusing a product team on the behavior, you're more likely to get things that would correlate with doing that behavior. And if that's the goal, that is a very helpful orientation for design and product to have. I don't think we should think about nudging as a negative thing. Every design the designer does is nudging me to do something. So
Mm.
every single design. If you place a button in a certain area and you make it a certain width and you put a label in it, or you have a value proposition that says something specific versus something general, these are all going to change my behavior. The whole
Mm.
world is designed to either get me to do something or not get me to do something. And my sense is we wildly underestimate this. And we
Yeah.
give the idea of the first design somebody does as the anchor, and then changing it as a nudge. It's like, "Oh, the first design was a nudge too." God, the idea that somebody did this without thinking. And in the near term, the behavioral science opportunity is one to help design those products and make people's lives easier.
Mm.
The real behavior change is hard and you're disrupting somebody's status quo
Yeah.
and it's very difficult. And so, I think if I were when we think about kind of doing this for product teams, for example, like the ChatGPT, open text field. Like we have worked with companies to redesign what that looks like so that people
Mhm.
have a faster time at getting the answers or the insights or the recommendations that they want. The idea of like just telling people some answer is unlikely if it was a human that you would believe it. So how do we help people increase trust,
Right.
reliability, believability of it? And this is very context dependent. There's no right answer
Mm.
here. And so for, for when we think about kind of the interim solution, it's how do we get people to change their current behavior and disrupt the status quo? There's a paper that just came out that said you will then choose AI because we're not actually
Mhm.
preferring humans versus AI. We're preferring an answer that is optimal for us. And
Right.
in this transition where humans are getting more used to AI, we have to remind
Mm.
folks in a much more salient and clear way that kind of the decision is it can be trusted and we should be confident in it.
Yeah.
Um, and then, again, it kind of goes back to the fundamentals of if we're going to
Mm.
disrupt someone's status quo, we have to fit into their lives. We have to make it easy. We have to make it motivating.